Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us here on CBS News 24/7. I'm Chanel Call in for Vladimir Duthier. We start this hour with some breaking news. The suspect in the murder of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson pleaded not guilty in New York City today. Luigi Mangione was arraigned on an 11-count indictment filed by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office. He could see anywhere from 25 years to life in prison if found guilty. Last week, officials announced federal charges against him, including murder and stalking. Now, if he is convicted on those counts, Mangione could receive the death penalty. And now we go to CBS News correspondent Lilia Luciano, live for us in Manhattan this hour. Lilia, great to see you. I know you were inside the courtroom when all this happened. Walk us through what you heard and saw there.
Hey, Chanel. First of all, I'll make a note that what you're hearing is what we can only call fans or supporters of Luigi Mangione holding signs who are behind the cameras. So that's what you're hearing in terms of chants. We also saw some people who showed up inside the courtroom in support. What we saw is Luigi Mangione out of his prison jumpsuit again, wearing his khaki jeans, a button-down white shirt, and in this case, a burgundy sweater, paying attention to his attorneys, focused on what they were advising. He pleaded not guilty to those 11 counts, as you mentioned. His attorney, though, had very harsh words against officials. She said she called what happened last week a spectacle. The way that he was brought into the city from Altoona, Pennsylvania, by the NYPD, she said, was the biggest, most staged perp walk that I've seen in my entire career. Keep in mind, this is somebody who worked at the DA's office for 25 years and has been practicing law for more than 3 decades. She was saying that her client is not being respected, his rights, that the way officials have talked about him, they don't use terms like alleged when referring to him and accusing him of the murder and of terrorism. She said that more than anyone, that Mayor Eric Adams understands the importance of the presumption of innocence, basically noting his own legal proceedings now in court. And so the next date that we heard from the judge for his next appearance in court, at least on these state charges, are February 21st. Last week, when we were inside the courtroom on the federal, this was the state charges, on the federal charges, the judge mentioned the date of January 18th, but that's a Saturday, so we're still waiting to get some clarity on which proceeding will happen first, but there seems to be coordination between both the federal case and the state case, with the FBI and the NYPD collaborating. There were some discussions about discovery, especially from the prosecution, given the amount of evidence, as the prosecutor talked about, the amount of the thousands and thousands of hours of video evidence that they have and other kinds of evidence that they have been compiling against the defendant. So they were asking for a bit of patience in providing that disclosure to his defense. But it was quite a brief hearing today. He walked in, listened, was at one point they removed his handcuffs, then they put him back on, and then he walked out of court escorted by officials there.
And Lilia, you know, I want to ask you about those requests made to the judge today, including expediting some of the discovery in this case. What else can you tell us about what his attorney is looking for?
That is what the defense is looking for. And of course, the prosecution is saying, look, the amount of evidence we have against this defendant is overwhelming. They talked also about this being unprecedented in terms of, this is from the prosecution. The defense wants all of that discovery. And keep in mind, it's not just the evidence that was compiled here in New York, but when he was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania, at that McDonald's, where Altoona police took his backpack. They said that they found this ghost gun. They found this notebook with a to-do list with statements that police and detectives are indicating are evidence of premeditation. There's also that 3-page letter with more than 300 words, I believe it was, where he talks specifically about, according to authorities, targeting this CEO in particular. So all of that is what the defense is asking for in an expedited way so that they can build their case. And the prosecution is saying, look, we're working with several law enforcement agencies and a lot of evidence.
All right, Lilia Luciano, live for us in Manhattan this hour. Thanks so much. And joining us now with more on this developing story is CBS News legal contributor Caroline Polisi. Caroline, great to see you again. I want to start with picking up on something that Lilia has said, talking about what we call a perp walk. The way that we saw Luigi Mangione come in today was quite starkly different than what we saw last week. Talk about why that might be and whether you think maybe he got some advice to show a different side.
Yeah, well, I can't say I'm surprised that Luigi Mangione's defense attorney, Karen Friedman Agnifilo, had some choice words for the prosecutors in this case. I think, when we saw him being taken in Altoona, he did have that outburst, much more staid, much more subdued now after the retention of Agnifilo. I think she likely told him to sort of downplay the situation because anything he does could be potentially used in court. But I think the bigger issue here is what she was complaining about, which is this huge fanfare and to do with extraditing, bringing Mangione to New York City, and the way in which both the state and federal prosecutors have really piled on. That's her term here. She said, in all her years of practicing, she's never seen anything like this. The way they're referring to him, apparently they're not using the words alleged when talking about the evidence and sort of presuming his guilt. Those are all really valid points. She's also made the case that this is an issue of double jeopardy with both the federal and state charges. Now, I don't think that will stick. They are different charges, but it is quite rare to see double prosecutions in this instance.
Okay, very interesting. Lots to follow here. Caroline Polisi, thanks so much.